Hello aspirants, a very warm welcome to Skholar IAS. This is Rohan Dange, your faculty for UPSC 2021-22. So in this session, we're going to talk about the recently launched budget by the Government of India. In fact, we have divided our budget series into two parts. This is a preliminary session of a budget series in which we're going to talk about the salient features of the budget. Okay. So this is part one. So this is Rohan Dange welcoming you once again on board to discuss Union Budget 2021-2022. And it's obviously quite natural to assume that this budget document is absolutely critical for your success at the examination in UPSC 2021, right? Prelims especially would focus on the one or two questions on budget. In fact, in the mains also, budgetary provisions can be used to write the answers and to quote the budget document, most importantly. So nevertheless, the budget is anyways a very important document, right, from the standpoint of your preparation. So I've divided the series, as I told you, into two parts. This is part one. So let's begin. Yeah. So the Ministry of Finance generally presents the budget, and it has the what you can say, the privilege of presenting the first budget of this decade in the Parliament, which is also the first ever paperless budget. Very, very important. This is the first ever paperless budget in the backdrop of COVID-19 crisis. So see, this is how COVID-19 has altered the way in which we think, in the way in which we what you can say, learn, the way in which we understand things and we carry out things, right? So basically, the Ministry of Finance has the honor of presenting the first budget of this decade in the Parliament, which is also, as I said, the first ever paperless budget in the backdrop of COVID-19 crisis. And this budget rests on six main pillars. So our objective is to take a look at the six main pillars. Once we take a look at those six main pillars, then that will help us in what you can say, identifying important areas, right? So for example, you get a question in mains 2021 regarding health and well-being, right? Or healthcare infrastructure or healthcare sector. Then obviously you can quote the budgetary provisions in your answers. At the same time, it is obviously quite natural for anyone to think that health for this year is going to be a major topic, right? Because 2020 was an entire year was locked up because of healthcare concerns, and not just in India but worldwide. This has been unprecedented. This is something which was never seen before, and this is something which is going to impact the global economy and international relations in a major way for the coming years also. In fact, an entire decade could go in restoring the relations and restoring the economies which were completely shattered by the onslaught of COVID-19 pandemic. Correct. So health and well-being is, of course, a very important topic in which, the first thing that we see is that vaccines. Now, we are looking at a situation of vaccine diplomacy, right? Vaccine diplomacy means that India is, first of all, India is at the forefront. India is one of the few countries which is at the forefront of creation or production of a vaccine, a reliable vaccine, right? In that we have the Covishield and Covaxin developed by your Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech respectively. So India is at the forefront, and India is charging ahead in the global race to come out with a vaccine. In fact, we have come out with a vaccine now, and because we have come out with a vaccine, we are also giving that vaccine to our neighboring countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Maldives, and stuff like that. So that is going to have an impact on our foreign policy in the immediate neighborhood. That's one important aspect, right? On top of that, as more and more vaccination drives are conducted across the country, we will see that the rate of infection comes down, because slowly and steadily we will also achieve what we call as herd immunity, right? So in the area of healthcare and well-being, we see that there are vaccines also. Rupees 35,000 crores are to be spent on COVID-19 vaccines in the year 2021 and 2022. Although the figures are not asked, but as I said, in your essays, in your answers, you can definitely quote these figures, right? So for the healthcare systems or for the health systems, what are the government outlays and what are the government provisions? It's important to understand that. So now an ambitious program, that is Pradhan Mantri Atmanirbhar Swasthya Bharat Yojana, has been launched. Right, it is a flagship scheme of the government now, and it is a very ambitious program which has been initiated by the government of India. So now this Atmanirbhar Swasthya Bharat Yojana is a newly centrally sponsored scheme. What do you understand by centrally sponsored scheme? See, there are two types of schemes. There are centrally sponsored schemes, and the second type of schemes are central sector schemes. In centrally sponsored schemes, basically there is a distribution of allocation of funding, right? Part funding is done and sponsored by the central government, and part funding is done by the state government in a particular ratio. Okay. Then on the other hand, you have something called as the central sector schemes. So when you talk about the central sector schemes, these are fully funded by the central government, right? So in UPSC prelims, they can definitely ask you which of the following statements regarding Atmanirbhar Swasthya Bharat Yojana is or are correct. And one of the statements would be it is a completely centrally funded scheme. So that is false, because it is a centrally sponsored scheme. That means that the state agencies or the state governments also have a role in sponsoring some part of this scheme, right? So this scheme is in addition to the National Health Mission. Okay, that means it is not subsuming the National Health Mission. It is just in addition to the National Health Mission. Now, what is the budgetary outlay? The budgetary outlay is 64,180 crores over a period of 6 years. Okay. So again, as I said, the figures may not be asked, but they might ask you the coverage of this scheme. So the periodic coverage or the period wise coverage of this scheme spans into 6 years. So that is something that you have to bear in mind. Right. Now, there are, of course, certain main interventions under this scheme. Right. So first of all, we want to create a national institution for One Health. Right. Uh, Through this scheme, we are also envisaging to create about 17,788 rural and 11,024 urban health and wellness centers. Right. Health and wellness centers are an important element of this scheme, right? Because this is going to be the arterial network through which we are going to conduct periodic health checkups, and through which we are going to give the health services, and so that the penetration of health services reaches every nook and cranny of the country, right? Of course, there is a regional research platform for World Health Organization Southeast Asia region. So that is also one of the what you can say provisions within the particular yojana, so that a regional research platform is going to be created for WHO Southeast Asia region in India. The outlay for health has seen a 82% jump over from the previous year, quite obviously because of the pressing health concerns which are grappling the world economy, not just India. Now, nutrition also is one of the most important aspects. Why? I'll tell you. Because nutrition plays an important role in physical development of children and cognitive development of children. Nutrition plays a role in deciding whether the child born is an malnourished child, is an underweight child, is a undernourished child or not, right? Cognitive development also means that children, the brain's development takes place as a fast pace. All of this is dependent on nutrition. In fact, previously the government had come out with the Prime Minister's overarching scheme on health and nutrition, Poshan, right? This was called as a Poshan Abhiyan, Pradhan Mantri's Prime Minister's overarching scheme on health and nutrition, under which there were certain heads like undernourishment, malnourishment, anemia, and malnourishment. So these are the four heads which are covered, and in this Poshan Abhiyan, not just newborn babies or infants are covered, but even adolescent girls are also covered, right? So this is now on the same lines. Mission Poshan 2.0 is to be launched to strengthen the nutritional content delivery, outreach, and outcome. So since Mission Poshan 2.0 is now being launched to strengthen nutritional content delivery, outreach, and outcome, it's important that you know the basics of Poshan Abhiyan. I have given you the basics of Poshan Abhiyan on screen, but you, if needed, you can also learn a little more on the same, right? Water is an important element Water is very important for agriculture, water is important for industries, water is important for households, right? And water also sometimes unfortunately becomes the carrier of various bacteria, viruses, and other parasites, right? So when it comes to water supply, we have to make sure that potable drinking water is supplied in a timely manner to the citizens. And also when it comes to water supply, we have to ensure the decontamination of water or desalinization of water, right? So water is a very important element, and every year the budget documents comes out with a monetary provision for water supply. So the total outlay proposed for the announced Jal Jeevan mission is 2,87,000 crores, right? So now again, from the examination point of view, what is important is Jal Jeevan mission. See, many times I have seen students come up to me and ask me very basic queries that there are so many schemes, right, in a year. How many schemes do we have to read, and how to identify which schemes are important and could be definitely asked in the exam. So my patent reply to all these candidates is that one should always look out for union budget document and economic survey document, and whichever schemes are mentioned in these documents become highly relevant from the examination point of view. Having said that, does that mean that they won't ask you anything beyond this? Of course not. It is UPSC, so you should expect anything under the sun. But when it comes to optimizing your preparation, you need to identify the hot button areas or the target areas, right? And this is how you identify these areas. अगर एग्जाम में पूछा तो ठीक है, नहीं आया तो फिर चलो कोई बात नहीं, वो यूपीएससी ही क्या जिसमें आपको सारे सवाल आए, ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता, right? So the total outlay proposed for the announced Jal Jeevan mission, urban, it has an urban component, is 2,87,000 crore rupees, right? Now, what are the salient features or what are the aims of this particular mission, right? So here, basically the objective is to provide household tap connections to how many households? To 2.86 crore households. So the objective is to provide 2.86 crore household tap connections. That's an important element and an important pillar of Jal Jeevan mission. Then you have something called as a universal water supply. You want to provide universal water supply in all the 378 urban local bodies. And you want to carry out liquid waste management in 500 Amrut cities, right? So, right. So basically Amrut stands for Atal Mission for revitalization of the urban centers, right? So liquid waste management in 500 Amrut cities and universal water supply in all the 400 and 378 urban local water bodies, apart from, of course, the 2.86 crore household tap connections, which are proposed to be supplied under this particular mission. Which mission? Jal Jeevan mission. Okay, then you have Swachh Bharat and Swasth Bharat. The Swachh Bharat and Swasth Bharat has an outlay of 1,41,678 crore over the course of next 5 years. As I said, they might not ask you the figures, but they might ask you the span of the coverage of the scheme. So it runs over a span of 5 years for Urban Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0. Again, when you talk about Swachh Bharat, Swasth Bharat, which component are you looking at? You're looking at the urban component of Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, right? Now, from this year's examination point of view, what I particularly feel is absolutely critical and important is the importance of clean air. Because we have seen that in the months of winter, typically Delhi fogs out, and in fact, there's a lot of smog formation. The air becomes unbreathable, and in fact, India has about 5 to 6 cities or even 7 cities in the top 10 most air polluted cities in the world. So that's a grim scenario staring India in the face, right? Therefore, air pollution has now become the bane of Indian economy and Indian polity and Indian society. And very recently, Supreme Court has also said that the right to life also corresponds to the right to breathe clean air. That is also everybody's fundamental right, correct? So of course, clean air has become a, what you can say, an Achilles heel, or the rather lack of clean air has become an Achilles heel for India, right? So now how what 2,217 crore rupees are earmarked to tackle air pollution for 42 urban centers with a million plus population. So look at the eligibility criteria. The eligibility criteria is very simple, that you need to have a population of more than a million. That's very important, right? So uh, roughly 2.25 crore rupees, 2.25 thousand crore rupees are allocated to tackle air pollution in 42 urban centers which have a million plus population, right? Apart from that, of course, you have something called as a scrapping policy. The scrapping policy has also been in the news, especially it was launched by our honorable minister Nitin Gadkari ji. So when you talk about scrapping policy, it is a voluntary vehicle scrapping policy to phase out old vehicles, right? Who actually fail the fitness test in automated fitness centers, right? So through this, what are we trying to achieve? We are trying to achieve that the emissions from these vehicles, they are reduced. So defunct vehicles, very old vehicles, which are responsible for a lot of emissions, they should be phased out, right? So therefore, we have proposed a scrapping policy to achieve our objectives under the clean air mission or clean air policy, right? So when you talk about personal vehicles, if you've been using a personal vehicle for more than 20 years, then you have voluntary vehicle scrapping policy. If it's a commercial vehicle, then after 15 years you can voluntarily scrap your vehicle, right? Now let's talk about physical and financial capital and infrastructure, because this is, apart from health, this is also one of the main pillars, right? So here in this department, let's talk about PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme, PLI, right? Now, see, in India, we see prior to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, we did see a lot of what you can see, a lot of recessionary trends in the Indian economic scenario. At the same time, we understood and entertained the fact that India is indeed growing, but there is a joblessness which is grappling Indian economy, which is nibbling at Indian economy's feet, right? In fact, UPSC has also asked an essay on the same topic, jobless growth. So in India, we have seen that prior to COVID-19 pandemic, the economy was still growing, even though at a sluggish pace, but the problem was of joblessness. In fact, last year, India achieved a peak of a 45-year high peak of unemployment rate, which was exacerbated and aggravated by the subsequent lockdown situation in the country, wherein the entire country was in a state of induced coma for more than 8 months, right? So, in the light of all this, we've seen the migrant crisis, which has also aggravated and intensified the state of joblessness, especially amongst the youth in the country, right? Now, this is something which is very worrisome. And therefore, anything which is worrisome, anything which is what you can say in the news, is definitely important from the UPSC point of view or the examination point of view as well, right? So in the budget, there is a mention, a very explicit mention of the production linked incentive scheme, right? So here, with an aim to create jobs for the youths, rupees 1.97 lakh crores have been announced. What is the aim? The aim is to create and nurture manufacturing global champions for Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this will also give a huge boost to Make in India campaign, right? And if India becomes a manufacturing hub, if India becomes an export-oriented economy, then there is a lot of possibility of India gaining a lot of foreign exchange also, right? Currently, we import more than we export, and because of that, we pay more than what we earn. So as a result of that, our foreign exchange reserves sometimes dwindle. So if we don't want that to happen, if we want to accumulate a lot of foreign exchange reserves, and if we want to become a resilient and a durable economy wherein no one is left behind and achieve financial inclusion, we must go for becoming a manufacturing hub, right? India is a service sector oriented economy, but the service sector does not have as much potential to create blue collar jobs and white collar jobs as much as the manufacturing sector, right? So therefore, it is important that a scheme like Atmanirbhar Bharat gets mentioned and gets adequate traction in the media as well, right? So under this scheme, the government envisages to help manufacturing companies become an integral part of global supply chains, right? Possess core competence and cutting edge technology. So this is also about skill upgradation and technology upgradation, right? Once that happens, then you can create a lot of jobs. So we're doing something in the textile sector also. The mega investment textile parks, the Mitra scheme, is in addition to the production linked incentive scheme. So there are 7 textile parks which are going to be established over the course of next 3 years. So about textile parks, you should know that it is a subcomponent of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. right? It is known by the name Mitra scheme, and it is addition to PLI. And 7 textile parks are set to be established over the course of next 3 years. Now we come next to the topic of infrastructure. Now infrastructure is almost an indispensable thing when it comes to economic growth and development. Infrastructural development is a cause and effect of growth and development, right? If you have infrastructure, it will lead to more and more growth and prosperity, right? If you have more and more growth and prosperity and economic well-being, then concomitantly you will have a robust infrastructure. So infrastructure is omnipresent. The importance of infrastructure cannot be overemphasized, right? In fact, if India wants to become a $5 trillion economy, then India has to invest at least 5 lakh crore rupees in 50 lakh crore rupees in infrastructure right now. That is our financial infrastructural requirement, 50 lakh crore rupees, right? 50 trillion rupees are required if you want to become a $5 trillion economy in the foreseeable future, right? So without infrastructural development, one cannot expect and hope to develop, right, as a nation. So a national monetization pipeline of potential brownfield infrastructure assets is to be launched. Now, what do you understand by brownfield infrastructure assets? Infrastructure assets which are defunct, right, or which are working at a subpar capacity, those are called as brownfield infrastructure assets, right? So through a national monetization pipeline, these brownfield infrastructure assets are going to be revitalized and relaunched. Okay. Schemes costing rupees 18,000 crore for the augmentation of public bus transport services are to be launched, right? Because we infrastructure creation also means creation of a viable and a efficient public transport system. Under this scheme, 7 port projects worth rupees 2,000 crores are to be offered by major ports in the public-private partnership mode. So port modernization and port development is also an element which is now emphasized upon in infrastructural development. There is also going to be a scheme for promoting flagging of merchant ships in India, which is going to be launched very soon. Now, ship recycling capacities of around 4.5 million light displacement tonnage is to be doubled by 2024. Right. So when you talk about ship recycling facilities and displacement tonnage, you are expecting it to double up by 2024. This is how you understand it. Okay. Of course, railway infrastructure is also very critical, right? So more than rupees 1 lakh crore is the outlay for railways, out of which 1,07,100 crore rupees are for capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is basically for capital asset creation and infrastructural asset creation in the railway system, right? So railways are going to now monetize the DFCs, the dedicated freight corridors. For example, the Delhi Mumbai industrial corridor, that's a dedicated freight corridor, or the Chennai Vizag industrial corridor, that's a dedicated freight corridor, or the Bangalore Mangalore industrial corridor, that's a dedicated freight corridor. Freight is basically the what you can say, the cargo trains, right? So the railways is going to monetize the dedicated freight corridor assets, okay, DFC assets, for operations and maintenance programs, right? Also, what we are looking at is 100% electrification of rail broad gauge route by December 2023 and a national rail plan for India 2030. This national rail plan for India 2030 actually is envisages to create a future ready railway system by 2030. Okay, so we are also now embarking upon the path of developing, designing and conceptualizing a futuristic railway plan in which railways will be the railway network in India and the railway infrastructure in India will be at par with international standards and global standards, right? Because railway network in India is so wide, is so huge that it will take some time. Therefore, a national rail plan for India 2030 is launched with a what you can say, a span of about 10 years. Okay. Apart from that, the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor and the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor are to be commissioned by June 2022 to bring down logistics costs. See, if one wants to become, if any country wants to transit from being a developing economy to a developed economy, it is important that you become a global leader in supply chain management and operations and logistics. Right now, India very clearly and very chronically lacks the presence of a good and a robust supply chain management system. Right. So therefore, it is one of the basics which needs to be covered. It is one of the bases which has to be covered if India expects to become a global superpower in the foreseeable future. And therefore, our government has identified the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor and the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor, which is going to be commissioned by June 2020. So you can imagine that a lot of towns and cities on these dedicated freight corridors will see a revitalized trading activity, will see a lot of people to people movements, a lot of exchange of goods and commodities and services. So as a result, that will also help India to recover as an economy, because currently the economists are talking about a V-shaped recovery. So this V-shaped recovery will only happen when we commission projects in a timely manner, right? So one such commissioning of the projects is the DFC in Western sector and Eastern sector, which is going to be commissioned very soon, which is next year in June, in the month of June, right? Now, roads and highway infrastructure. Roads and highway infrastructure is also very important because it fosters people to people contacts, right? It also, on both sides of the highway, it creates a viable economic ecosystem which gives purposeful and meaningful and gainful employment to people, right? We have seen that in the case of Yamuna Expressway. We have seen that in the case of the Western Expressway between Mumbai and Pune. And we are set to now witness the same thing across the country, right? In fact, there is a very ambitious project, the what you can say, the Nagpur Mumbai expressway, right, which is called as a Samruddhi Mahamarg Expressway. It is going to connect more than 7 cities, big cities, and more than 20 towns. It is also going to bridge the rural-urban divide between Eastern Maharashtra and Western Maharashtra. Right, that is just one of the projects. There are there are many other such projects which are coming up. Right, the coastal road project in Mumbai is one of the most ambitious projects. Right, and it is going to not only lead to the decongestion of traffic in Mumbai, but it is also going to create more networks and also going to create what you can say free public spaces by reclaiming the sea, right? So Mumbai is going to get a new lease of life. Likewise, as I said, there are many highway infrastructure and road development projects which are on the anvil, right? So 1.18 lakh crore rupees, which is the highest ever, has been allocated for the Ministry of Road Transport. Now, since it is the highest ever allocation, it is very clear that the government's focus is on road development, right, and highway development. Again, out of this 1,08,000 crores are going to be spent on capital expenditure. That means for creation of capital assets, right? So the program under which all of this is going to be done is called as the ambitious Bharat Mala Pariyojana, right? Which is going to cost the Bharat Mala Pariyojana in its entirety costs about 5.3 lakh, 35 lakh crore rupees, right? And in under this scheme, more than 13,000 kilometer length of roads are going to be constructed, out of which 3,800 kilometers have already been constructed, right? So that means we have already gained the momentum when it comes to creation of a arterial road network in the country, right? And that to a what you can say, an arterial road network which conforms to the global standards, right? Moving on, let's talk about the sector of power infrastructure. So in this sector, see, now in India, we want to become energy reliant. We want to become energy independent. We do not want to rely on what you can say other countries for the augmentation of our energy supply. At the same time, we want continuous energy, and we want cheap energy, and also we want clean energy, the 3 C's of energy, right? See, one needs to understand that the power is the driver of every economy, isn't it? Right. So if you have continuous power, cheap power, and clean power, you are basically providing a lot of momentum to your economy, especially your MSME sector, right? So keeping that in mind, creation of power infrastructure is absolutely critical. So 139 gigawatts of installed capacity and an additional 2.8 crore households are connected in the past 6 years. Here, the consumer will get a choice to select their distribution company to promote competitiveness, right? So the electricity boards, right? Very recently, there was an issue of how electricity boards were overcharging people for their electricity bills, Now you have a lot of private vendors also who are there in the market who can provide you with electricity. So now, because of taking away the monopolistic character, the state electricity boards, if at all they are exploitative, they will not be able to exploit, right? And the citizens will also get a lot of choice, right? This all comes under the public choice theory. You are extending the benefit of choice to people, and when you do that, then you're taking care of the problem with monopoly, right? So this is how consumers are going to get a choice, as in when it comes to selecting their distribution company, right? So for example, if I'm living in Mumbai, I can go for Tata Power, I can go for Adani Electricity, or I can even go for MSEB, right? Depending on who is providing me more cost efficient electricity, right? By 2021 and 2022, in this fiscal year, a national hydrogen energy mission is to be launched. Now this national hydrogen energy mission is to be launched is keeping in mind our objectives as regards creating a more clean energy network in India. In our energy mix, we have a lot of we have about 60% of the contribution by thermal power plants, which are coal based. Now coal is dirty fuel because it has a higher carbon footprint. Now we want to move away from dirty fuel towards clean fuel to meet our targets, which we had submitted as INDCs, intended nationally determined contributions, at the Paris Climate Change Conference in 2015. If you want to meet these targets, we have to make a conscious move towards clean energy. This particular mission is a move in that direction. A national hydrogen energy mission 2021 and 2022 is going to be launched in this fiscal year. Petroleum and natural gas is another important head. So here you will see that the extension of Ujjwala scheme is to cover 1 crore or more than 1 crore beneficiaries, right? So here you are giving basically LPG connections, right? And by giving LPG connections, you are getting rid of kerosene and firewood, which adds a lot of smoke to the atmosphere, and also what you can say, affects negatively the lungs of children and women who spend most of their time inside the house, right? Under this, the budget also envisages the addition of 100 or more districts to city gas distribution networks in the next 3 years, right? Also, a new gas line pipeline project for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is on the anvil. Okay, let's talk about financial capital now. Single security code market code is to be evolved, because securities are now being increasingly seen as a vehicle of instrument in India, especially the government securities. So that market code is now to be evolved, because more and more people are investing in that particular vehicle of investment. Now there is going to be support for the development of world-class financial hub at the Gift City. The first Gift City was started in Gandhinagar, right? And now it is coming up in Mumbai as well, right? So basically here in this, you will have international stock exchanges will be listed, which will be listed on this bourse, and you will end up attracting a lot of foreign portfolio investment and foreign institutional investment, right? So the new permanent institutional framework will help in development of a bond market. Thereby, you will now create more diversity in the savings and investment mechanisms which are available to the public, right? By purchasing investment grade debt securities both in stressed and normal times. Okay. Now, disinvestment, which is also known as the sale of strategic assets, is also something which is very important from the point of view of creating more and more capital, creating fiscal space, so that more money is available with the government to spend on to go for more and more capital expenditure. So rupees 1,75,000 crore receipts are estimated through disinvestment in the year 2020, 21, 22. See, through the disinvestment of big conglomerates like BPCL, or launching the IPO of LIC, or the sale of Air India. And the government is also going to come out with a list of new companies which are going to be disinvested, companies which are white elephants, companies which are dragging the what you can say, which are basically not profit making, and which are a burden on the government. So such companies are going to be identified by the government for disinvestment, and also for sale of strategic assets, right? So that includes Shipping Corporation of India, Container Corporation of India, IDBI Bank, Pawan Hans, right? Other than IDBI Bank, 2 more public sector banks and 1 insurance company are going to be privatized very soon. So this is also one of the ambitious government. Now, come to the end of today's session. I hope this session was It provided some insights to you. I hope this session is also helpful from the prelims point of view. I will be coming out in the next session on budget, union budget part 2, in which I'll be discussing about more aspects of union budget as regards other pillars of Indian economy are concerned. So till the time we meet next, this is Rohan Dange bidding you goodbye. Keep reading, keep revising, and also keep maintaining social distancing. Thank you. Take care.